Welcome once again to this week's edition of Stay Out of the Kitchen. I'm Doug Heater. I'll be joined momentarily by Mike Fouts. Now, we usually like to start with some joyful stuff. And last week, I think we just talked about filling up a piss jug right out of the gate. But because of what happened yesterday, finding out of the passing of John Madden, a legend, I figured we would start with that. Now, Mike, I got some stories about him, that guys that knew him. But I mean, this is a guy, and I know that we're going to sound like two old men, but there's never going to be a broadcasting tandem that was as good as Summerall and Madden. And I don't think there's ever going to be an analyst that's going to have his personality and be able to do what he did.
You know, I agree, Doug. So there's a couple of interesting things about Madden. First of all, he was a couple hours short of having a PhD in education, which I find interesting. That made him a good teacher by nature, I think. And then the thing that is, I think, the most remarkable about John Madden is he spans relevance across three generations. There's an entire generation, like our parents would know him as a coach. You and I know him as a broadcaster. And the voice of our childhood, quite frankly, right? He was the soundtrack for me of football as a kid. And then my son and your son know him for a video game. Yeah. Which to me is remarkable that he's relevant across that period of time.
You know, I know. I mean, hopefully we have young people that watch this. I know we have people that are our age and a little older and a little bit younger. But if you have never seen, I mean, Pat Summerall's voice. You know, it's just like Vin Scully in baseball, right? I mean, his voice, you just meant big football. But those two guys, I mean, they could make, I don't know if they ever told us, they told the story about Greg Minuski, who his nickname, now they nickname him Stink too, like Schlereth. But Minuski, this is how I'm going to get at. He made a shitty preseason Vikings game good. He told a story about how Minuski, they stuck a stink bomb in his helmet in his locker. And then they show him on the sideline, and there's Minuski, who's a coach in the NFL now, sitting on the bench all by himself. And Madden's like, oh, the helmet must still stink. And it was like a horrible Vikings exhibition game. Like, they made bad games great, and every game that they did that was epic. I mean, just the way they worked together was outstanding. And Madden, of course, was perfect for that role as the coach. I don't think anybody else could have led a group like that Raiders team. Those Raiders team, which, by the way, would be none of them would be playing because they'd be in prison by now with the rules. But he was perfect for leading that group. Those guys were unbelievable.
That is so true. That was one of the most eclectic football teams ever. There's a great clip, by the way, that if you haven't seen it, you should go watch it. It's Madden during the Giants-Broncos Super Bowl, which is horrific. It was a blowout. Yeah. And he is diagramming late in the game the Gatorade buckets. Yeah. And it's spectacular, right? But to your point, he could make any situation, along with Summerall, interesting and relevant. And it will be missed, that's for sure.
So one more quick one. So our first year covering the Phantoms here in Allentown, Terry Murray, their head coach, was friends with Madden and Stabler when those teams were in their heyday. And he told me that they would invite him into the locker room and he would go in during the game and at halftime. And I mean, of course, that's something that you think about is not right, but they didn't care. And it was as true as the stories that the guys would be sitting around, you know, drinking beers and smoking and everything. Like, it was unbelievable the way those guys were. I mean, that was a great time. I think I had asked him about memorable times in his career. This is a guy that coached, in the Stanley Cup Finals and all kinds of great stuff. And he talked about those times with the Raiders as maybe being something that was one of the most interesting things that he's ever experienced.
It's almost like a beer league softball team, right? Yeah. Only it's professional football and guys are actually getting paid and some are in the Hall of Fame. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, it's luckily for people can still watch the games and clips on YouTube, and his name will never go away because of the video game. It's it's really something. But he was I tell you, he's a guy that knew his stuff. I mean, that was the first. Not only did he have the personality, but he taught you about the game in a way that you could understand. This brings me to something I want to talk about later the unnecessary jargon used by analysts to make them sound smarter than we are because they know football, when really, if you study it, you know it better than they do. But he never did that. He taught you about the game and how to watch the game properly, just like because he was a regular dude and he used words that we would use. I mean, doink and, boom and all that stuff. He got it. It was because he was a regular guy. So he'll surely, or miss that. And again, I think the cloaks, I don't know if you agree with me, if there's an analyst, I think the closest analyst that I thought in his prime before he took the general manager job with the Lions was Matt Millen. I thought Millen, if he stayed and didn't ruin a franchise for a while, I think he had a chance to, or obviously it didn't work for him. I mean, that wasn't his gig, but I thought he was the best analyst, the closest thing to Madden, because he was a regular guy that of course played for those Raiders and was around teams, players like that.
Yeah. Well, you mean you don't think Dennis Miller was that kind of guy?
Oh my God. I forgot about those horrific experiments. No.
However, because we can never be terribly serious about anything, but there's the chasm between like what you have now or what we've had versus Madden. And so that kind of, to me, that encapsulates his greatness and how good he was, right? Look at some of the clowns that are out there now. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, it's awful. And that's a whole nother thing. You know what? That's one of the things I think I want to talk about next week. I might save my phrase, my catchphrase, because I've got a bunch of stuff that I got so many things. There's over 20 things I want to get to. And a lot of them I'm trying to be, if they're time sensitive, like the ridiculous Mummers Parade, it's necessary because it's coming up on New Year's Day. But I'm going to save that, and we can talk about some of the overdone sayings and the analysts that are just thrown out there because they played the game. So last week, I want to get back to the piss jug, which is going to lead us to two stories. It's going to lead us to a Denver story, a part of the epic Denver trip that forever since that day was you would refer to it as going Denver if you got completely annihilated, because it is the top of the food chain when it comes to trips. Although we've tried, that one's still number one. But I want to get to the Denver story. But the reason I say this is, so I did the piss jug collection, 2 piss jugs. Again, they equal together 1.69 of a gallon. So 1.69, a little bit more than a gallon and a half. I was able to accomplish that in less than 24 hours and filled the first one in 8. So I think that's quite impressive. Then failed to forget to bring them today.
That is impressive. And now it looks like you're drinking one of them.
Yeah, that's what I got to. It does look like I'm drinking piss. It's not. It's a hybrid of Diet Mountain Dew and the orange zero sugar power Gatorade. It does look like urine. Actually, that's if your urine looks like this, you're not healthy. I can tell you that. But what I wanted to say, that the story it triggered, Mike, was that time we went. So we went to Denver. Mike and I went to Denver. It was when Vince Young played. It was still when we were doing Monday Night Football trips. And Vince Young was playing for the Titans. They were playing the Broncos. And we got tickets for the Monday night game, and it was great weather. But they had an ESPN zone walking distance of where we stayed in a beautiful place. Was it a loft? Was it one of those? No, it wasn't. Which I'll get to what this other part of that story. I want to save me thinking that we were going to be banned forever from staying there for some reason. But so Mike and I go to ESPN zone. We scouted out the Saturday night. And they had an area where you could sit in the easy chairs, like the nice, like the chairs that you could recline back. You had your own tray. You had a drink cup holder, and then you had the wall of televisions in front of you. So we reserved ours, right? It wasn't first come, first serve, was it?
Oh,
we
no,
reserved it Saturday night.
Yeah, you had to make a reservation.
So we reserved it Saturday night and sat there. It was a huge place, and it is. I still think it's the best venue. The one in Tempe was pretty good, but I think the ESPN zone was number one. And then you had all the games on a giant monitor. I sat next to a big dude that had his custom-made Lions jersey, because I don't remember anybody wearing 99 at that time. He sat next to us, but this was the best part about it. And guys that drink a lot of beer during football can relate to this story. So we started drinking 10 a.m., 11 a.m. kick. We probably started at noon. I'm going to say we started. We started at 10 o'clock, probably 10:30, maybe in the morning.
They opened at 10 o'clock, and first kick for the East Coast games was at 11 local time. So we got there a couple minutes after 10.
So we probably waited till 10:30. I know we started before the game.
Yeah.
Drank at a hellacious pace, like obviously no conserving it. The impressive part about this and this story is that I managed to go through the entire, what we still refer to as the 1 o'clock games on the East Coast, went through all those games and made it to halftime of the 4 o'clock games at what would have been 5:30 Eastern time. That's when I had to go to the bathroom the first time. Still impressive, has never been duplicated on any trip.
No.
I can't even do it at the house anymore. Broke the seal, had to go every 20 minutes. But that was one of the most impressive efforts I've ever seen a body actually do. I managed to, because even you were impressed with that one.
Do you think when you finally did go to take a piss that you could have pissed over a fence?
No, I had the power. I had the power to do it, but I don't think I could have pissed over the fence. Let me reiterate again. Mike's son Davis believes that a human being can piss over a 6-foot fence. It is not possible. As I've stated before, your body has a governor on it, and it can only go so high. It can't go over your, I don't know if you even went back, if you could maybe get it up around nose level, not over a 6-foot fence.
There's no way.
Even at that, because I know I used to, my record length of piss was 90 seconds. I think I've been around 90 seconds, but you can't, it has a thing, because you can't, otherwise you'd just be, right? I mean, watch this, let me get it. So you can't be doing that.
That's right. I don't think the body, I think it governs itself. There's no way.
But you were impressed with that length of duration, am I right?
It was almost unbelievable. Like I literally sat there and had to think back for the last 4+ hours to make sure you hadn't snuck out somewhere. And here's how I knew. If you remember this, when we sat down a little after 10, we were the only people in there.
Yeah.
And when you got up, it was
mobbed.
jammed.
Yes.
People everywhere. There were 1,000 people in there, literally.
It was,
that was the validating point.
Yeah, because you were sitting there and we ate and they brought beers right to you. They kept bringing them, and it was good service. They just brought them to you, set them on a tray, fired it down. And I remember you actually started thinking that you were sitting in your living room because you were just sitting there, and all of a sudden you get up and there's thousands of people behind you.
Yeah,
that was a cool trip. There's a lot more to that, a lot more. But let's just shave a little off on that one. We'll get to the other stuff. So last week you told me that something roasted your balls, and it was the analytics. We'll focus on a little ball now. The analytics that enter football. So I'll let you have at it, and then I've not heard your take on this, so I'll see where I go after you're done.
All right. So here's what prompted this, Doug. I'm watching a game. I think it was the Rams and the Chargers game. I think that's what it was, right? And it's a big analytics game because you got those two young guys. You got McVay and the other guy for whatever his name is for the Chargers, right? And I know some kid.
I don't know.
Right. Like you don't know. So anyway, both of them refuse to kick a field goal, right? So one team ends up losing in overtime. If you would have if any one of them would have kicked a field goal along the way, by the way, they're chip shot field goals.
Yep.
Okay. On 4th down, you win the game, you don't go to overtime, it's over. Right. So I start looking into this and I find a stat. Do you know what current coach has the worst or the fewest attempts on 4th down? So they look at all the analytics, but over the last 20 years, this coach is the worst in the league at going forward on 4th down. You know who that coach is?
I'm going to say it's Belichick.
It's Bill Belichick.
Yeah.
He's also the guy who has won more Super Bowls than anybody else in the league in the last 20 years.
Yep.
So here's my point. If it's good enough for Belichick to either punt and play defense or kick a field goal and take 3 points, then why isn't it good enough? The guy's won more games than anybody, and he's won more Super Bowls. So really, is it really the right thing to do to always go for it on 4th and goal at the 2?
So, first of all, the book that I would follow, because they have a book now, because baseball has a book. You have a book out there, you got to flip it open. I'd have a book that was titled, What Would Belichick Do? I would have studied, I'd have spent all that time the analytics nerds spent on it, and I would have had people break down every situation that Belichick's ever done in his career, and then said, what did he do? Oh, 8 out of 10 times, 4th and 2, he kicked a field goal. We're going to kick one. That's what I would do. Right. Now, you do realize that analytics now don't separate me and you from coaching. Because if this is the way the league wants to go, just like baseball, you and I say this, I mean it, could easily be a general manager of a baseball team, a major league team. That is not bullshit. And we can manage because we know the game, we've been around the game, we know the players, and we can practice analytics because we're not stupid in math. If you want to have an analytical game, you're going to have a guy that's never played before that has no feel for the game coaching football because that's the direction it's going.
Yep. Have some feel for the game. By the way, if I had the Belichick book, chapter 1 would be cut sleeves out of hoodie, right? Chapter 2, if in field goal range, reasonably on 4th down, kick the field goal, take the points.
Yes.
Right? I would just so it roasts my balls to continue to see the teams that could have easily won games and they ended up losing in regulation or lost in overtime by a point or 2 points. You kick a field goal, you win.
Well, that sort of goes along with the same theory now with guys going for 2 or the old thing of chasing the point early. And had they not done that down the road, it'd be like had they had kicked an extra point there, now that we're a good 15 to 20 minutes deeper into the game, a field goal would have won it or a standard extra point would have given you the lead. This is but it's all about the books now. And everybody thinks they're smarter than everybody else because you're taking a basic game and you're turning it into you're trying to be the smartest guy in the room, and you don't have to be to coach this game. You kick a field goal, you kick it's just there's no feel anymore. It's up by the book. Well, 2.73 million. It's ridiculous. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Yep.
Oh.
So I won't spend a lot of time talking about this because I know we'll do it later because it's football season. But the other place that it drives me bananas is in baseball. And here's all I'm going to say, and then we'll talk about it when we get around to baseball season. Mm-hmm. It is Hall of Fame voting time. Scott Rowland is not a Hall of Famer. Mm-hmm. Don't show me the fucking analytics. Yeah. He's not a Hall of Famer. Like, he has one good stat, and he's pretty good playing defense, not a Hall of Famer. So it applies across all the sports. I think baseball and football are the ones we see it the most in. But, I mean, come on, give me a break.
There's 2 reasons why I'd like to see Scott Rowland make the Hall of Fame, and it has nothing to do with his playing on the field. My dad loved him when he came up through the system, when he was with the Phillies, and the Phillies hated him. So that would be funny, but that's another story. That's another. Phillies fans still think him and Jason Worth, 2 great guys, had nothing to do with not wanting to be there. I mean, I wouldn't want to play in that shithole. So actually, I'll talk about the Mummers Parade in a little bit because I want to talk about Mike McCarthy next.
Okay.
All right. And I agree with you but see, the difference with you and me, Mike, with baseball, and we will talk about this later, is I am a football guy. I think numbers, I can wipe my ass with them. I don't care. That's why I don't care about who's the MVP in the NFL. I don't care who's the rushing leader. I don't care that because if you win a championship, that's good. Adrian Peterson a couple of years ago when Christian Ponder couldn't play because his elbow hurt in the playoff game, had that record season. I don't care if he won the MVP. It's great, but it didn't win him a Super Bowl. Baseball people, baseball fans that love the game, love the numbers, and I can't get into that because I look at it and it's like, well, like Billy Martin. Like I don't understand. To me, I don't understand how Billy Martin, who made such an impact in the game, isn't in the Hall of Fame. That I don't understand. And I don't know if it's because his managerial numbers, other than the fact that maybe the sports writers didn't like him because of who he was, but that's, one of those guys. I have a hard time where, and you can't be like that if you love football, because how do you put Randall McDaniel in? He had 80 more pancake blocks in a season. You don't know. So that's why it's hard for me with numbers. But if you said Scott Rowland, I'd be like, no, he's in that wing we talk about, the other really good guy, like Harold Baines, the really good guy wing, which is what the Hall of Fame is turning into. Yeah,
that's right. By the way, Billy Martin should be in the gets ripped in a bar after the game Hall of Fame.
Oh,
that's where he should be.
Oh, man. But wouldn't it have been great? Wouldn't it have been great to be around that guy when he managed? I'm also going to take a straw poll on how if these podcasts should go a little longer than they've been, because we're already at 20 minutes and I'm having a lot of fun. Maybe we can stretch it a little bit, see if people get pissed off. All right, Mike McCarthy. I'm watching the Cowboys very briefly. By the way, I had a dream in the summertime. I don't think I told you this. Had a dream in the summertime that the Cowboys and Chiefs played each other in the Super Bowl. And I remember in the dream like, shit. I don't want to see Kansas City in again, and I don't want to see the fucking Cowboys because I don't like them. And I tell you what, I don't think Dallas gets in, but it's still getting close. I cannot believe that team, well, they'll figure out a way to screw it up. At least Jerry Jones will. But yeah. I'm watching Mike McCarthy on the sideline. So the year Mike and I go out to Green Bay the first time, we get hammered that Sunday, of course. The next day, we spent trying to walk it off all day, going out to lunch with your buddy, right?
We did, yeah. It was actually my financial plan. So, by the way, we got ripped, okay, Sunday night, just violently. And we tried to grind it out because pros play hurt. And so we have lunch with my buddy, who's also my financial planner, and we do it at Lambeau. There's a restaurant inside there, right? First of all, I could barely walk.
Yes.
Right? Let alone hold a remotely intelligent conversation and try and eat something. Those were like the walking, eating, talking, the three last things I wanted to do on the face of the earth. I was so hungover.
Now, shockingly, he was at the game and tailgated with us the day before, but he seemed to be okay. Yes. But he might have not gone to Stadium View afterward for a good, I don't know how many hours after that till they threw us out of there. But so we go to lunch with him, and we also go to the Packer Hall of Fame. So as it's winding down, I don't even remember if it was connected to the stadium or not, but they have the Mike McCarthy show. Well, you know better where it was, right?
It was in the stadium, yeah.
Okay.
So they built they call it the atrium at Lambeau. If you ever go to Lambeau, they have this, it's called the atrium, and they have a restaurant attached and conference rooms. You can have meetings in there, business meetings. It's really spectacular. It's really awesome. And they have like a presser room in there. So it's basically a room, and they get the background they put behind them. And there was, I don't know, there's probably, I'll say 30 chairs or something like that. And you could get for free, there was no charge at the Packer Hall of Fame. You could get tickets for the Mike McCarthy show, which was on Monday after the game on Sunday.
Now, we stumbled on this. Now, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, we were the third person in. There was three of us, me, you, and that weirdo guy, right?
That's right.
The super fan guy that was a weirdo guy. Knew that right away. They're like, hey, you guys, they actually didn't plead with us, but said, come on in, come on. I mean, this is how bad it is. Mike McCarthy, the NFL coach. So there was maybe 20 people right in there about that. And it was in a room. You sat in a folding chair. It was like going to like a meeting at school or in the church basement after church was, and we sat there, and then they're like, hey, when the coach is done, and they were good. I mean, it was not, when the coach is done, you guys can ask questions. And they actually encouraged us to come up with a question because people don't ask questions. I don't think either one of us did, because obviously at that time, who knows what would have come out of my body, even though it was at nighttime. I don't know. I would have asked, have you ever drank 30 beers at the Stadium View or anything? But I just remember I could not believe that's just what Green Bay's like. It's that casual and that easy is to be a dude and just go to the coach's show the next day, like 6:30 or 7 o'clock. And then there he is. I mean,
that's right.
Freaking Philly. My God, it would be a nut house down there if they did that.
That's right. There is no exaggeration in that story, by the way. You might not have represented how hungover we were and how drunk we were the night before. I think the night before we saw Joe Flacco get thrown out of the Stadium View, by the way.
The Flacco trip was the next year. That was the Monday nighter when they tossed him out of the bar. Good one. It wasn't actually him, but they carried him. Remember that? He went up to the DJ, knocked the DJ shit, made it noise, and they just right out, opened the door, and out he went. Now, he was a guy wearing a Flacco jersey, but as we say, everybody that's wearing one, it's him. Because we saw Hines Ward fall asleep at a pisser in Indianapolis when the Steelers were in town once. But that's, The Flacco trip was the year later. That one was the first one. That's when I think the Phillies were playing the Rays in the World Series, and we sat there and got ripped, and that was a lot of fun at that stadium view.
It was a great time. It's also the time, by the way, that you accused me of almost getting us thrown out. Was it a Waffle House or a Perkins?
Okay.
You accused me of that. I don't think that's accurate.
Yeah, so I got actually, you know what? Let's stay with it because I want to piggyback that trip, and then the next day wanting to steal Captain Morgan and Jack Daniel. All right. So we go, I'm assuming it was 2:30 or whatever. We stayed at the Stadium View until it was closed. It was a great time. So we get a cab. Now this is before Uber. We get a cab to take us to the only place open. It might have been a Denny's, and it seemed like it was 30 minutes away, but it wasn't. So we roll into this diner, and it's at least 2:30 in the morning. Mike is beyond ripped, and he is loud. He's really loud, banging the table. It's like, now I understand that they figured that there's nobody sober on a Sunday in a Green Bay diner. Dave was our cab driver who was really out there, but these two couples of older people, probably in their 80s, all dressed up at about 3:30 in the morning, walk into the diner. And I'm afraid Mike is so out of control. He's just loud and who knows what. This is how bad it was. It was so bad that I was the voice of reason, which happens 1 out of every 20 times. And I thought for sure he's going to get us tossed out. And then Dave came and picked us up and then drove us back to the hotel. This was bad. Like it was, there's 2 times, one other time was in Baltimore. I'll talk about that another time. This time I thought for sure, like they're going to ask us to leave because he was extremely loud.
Allegedly I was loud.
No, you were.
Allegedly. And I didn't break my thumb banging the table. So I didn't break my thumb yelling, fuck the Steelers. So
that's true.
It could have been that bad.
The other time that Mike almost got us thrown out is when he thought the bartender's name was Jeremiah Weed. But that's for another time in Baltimore. That's just for people that know what that is, just soak that up for a second. Mike thought, they have Jeremiah Weed. Mike thought that I was referring that the bartender's name was Jeremiah Weed. Just take that in for a minute. All right, I want to end with these 2 things. You don't even remember when you were living in Pennsylvania, the obsession by some of the Mummers Parade.
No, I don't remember this Mummers Parade. And the other thing I don't remember is John. What the fuck is John?
So
I don't remember that.
The Mummers Parade, for people from this area, I remember from New Jersey because it affected my bowl watching on New Year's Day as a kid. The Mummers Parade is one of the most ridiculous things I've ever seen. It's a bunch of weirdos. I can say it. It's a bunch of freaks dressing up in this garb. They spend all year. I know they're all drunk. My dad's like, these guys are drunk. They've been drunk for days. And they march around. I think they're string instruments. And it's this big deal in Philly, the Mummers Parade. Now, why it affects me so much is that when I was a kid, before cable, Channel 3, which is KYW out of Philly, came in clearer, the NBC affiliate, or more clear, whatever the word is, than Channel 4 out of New York. The Rose Bowl is on NBC. So the Mummers Parade, which was on around the clock on New Year's Day, was on. So we would flip over and be like, fuck, the fucking Mummers Parade is still on. So that's why I hate it so much. That's one of the reasons why. Then I went to visit I believe, it was a girlfriend. I'm in high school, girlfriend's house in Collingswood, New Jersey. We go to her grandmother's, like I stay overnight New Year's Eve. We go to her grandmother's, she lives right next door. And I'm like, okay, we'll watch the game. Got the Mummers Parade on. Can't belt out, what the fuck you doing? Got the Mummers Parade on. So you got to sit there and watch this shit instead of watching and it's the Rose Bowl. Because it'd be that time is when NBC, because the other games were on other channels. So that's my hatred of the freaking Mummers Parade. And it's still...
That game came on? It came on at like 4:00 in the afternoon for us on the East Coast.
Yes.
How long was that parade?
It was on. No, it was on all day. Well, see now with you guys because you have. Well, now you have another. I think you have another affiliate. I think you have two.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. Just sure as hell not. It's not going to be. It better not be freaking on this week. I can tell you. Oh, it's all. They all switched it right. Rose Bowl. That's not on NBC anymore. It used to be on NBC.
Yeah.
Now, as far as John. When the Iron Pigs released that ridiculous stunt a couple years ago, I had no clue. I never heard of it. I assumed people knew. I had no idea. I had no idea what that means. I think it's kind of like the way I use the word jig, where you slide your car off the side of the like jig is you don't ever want to be there. Like if you got a piece of jig on your face, oh, you got a little piece of you don't want it there. You crash your car. I ended up in the jig. You're in the weeds. You don't want to be there. You're skiing. You end up in the woods. You're in the jig. So I think John is like that, right? It's sort of like, it's just like, I don't even know how to explain it now. I don't even know what it is.
I had to look it up. It can be anything. It can be anything you want it to be. So like I could say, oh, Doug's drinking John right there. It can be anything. Or he's got that John on it, which would indicate your shirt. It can be anything.
Well, let me just say, I'm going to word it this way. When they released that stupid thing at Iron Pigs, people that either are from the area, from Philly, or want to be from Philly, and there's a lot of them up here, people that want to be, they want to be connected to Philadelphia when you're not. They knew. I'm going to say 10%. Seriously. I'm going to say 10.
Wow.
A high, let's just put it this way. A high-ranking official that works for the Iron Pigs had no clue when they did this. Just thought, well, somebody said something. He had not from around here. I won't say where he's from because it gives it away for those that know. I will say a high-ranking official had no clue. Told me this. I had no idea. I'm not from Philly. And they said, hey, what do you want to do? And because he did market it worked. It's like the stupid cheesesteak hats when they did the cheesesteaks. People... I had a guy, I swear the same day you sent me the Twitter text, what the hell is this shit? Later that day, I had a guy ask me, can I get tickets for that game because I want to get a cheesesteak shirt and a hat. That's it.
You know what they should give away, Doug? Right there, them giraffes.
That giraffe?
Right like that. Yeah, that right there.
That's that. Mike was a little late. I forgot to tell the Captain Morgan story. I'll get back to that. We're at 32. Let's go a little longer today.
Okay.
Mike said I needed a minute to get set up. And I said, is that to set up your giraffe back there? The giraffe emoji on the phone is almost exactly the same replica of that. So let's go back to Green Bay. I forgot about this. So this is the same epic trip. So this was Sunday when we went to the coaches show. We decide, Monday night. We decide, well, let's just drink more. So we went sort of out of the area to a place you knew, like it was like across the bridge or something.
Yeah, it was downtown Green Bay proper. We'd never been to downtown. We'd always kind of been out and around Lambeau and out where my buddy lives. So this was actually downtown Green Bay. And it was some sort of hotel. Yeah,
got some drinks. So sat there. I don't remember there was being many. There was, I know, at least one other person. We will not, but I know there wasn't many people there. And the bartender, if I remember correctly, was a woman, and I think frightened that something was going to go down because she was the only one, right?
Yeah.
Like we got two class. So it was a nice place. Like it's a nice, classy place. But in it, if you can believe this, they had not only a full-size Captain Morgan figure to promote Captain Morgan, but they had Jack Daniel also from Jack Daniels. So Mike and I spent the entire night debating on the logistics of if indeed we could take one of these with us. And if we did, how would we... Well, we got to check it in. You got to check it's a checked bag. It can't be a carry-on. And the drunker we got, the better ideas we came up with on if we could get it out of there. And then when they were getting ready to close, remember the cop showed up to make sure that she was going to get all the money out and get to her car safely.
I got to tell you this, Doug. We could have gotten those bastards out of there. We could have done that. Yeah. Now, getting them home would have been a little rough, right? That would have been an issue. But we could have, when you go over that, they're made out of like almost like a paper mache type material. So they're really pretty light.
They were light.
If you're ever looking to clip one of them.
Right. They were big, though. They weren't chained down. The Jack Daniels was easier because he was, but Captain Morgan had his leg up, and he obviously, I think he had the sword here. Like, he would have been harder to carry out of there. But Jack would have been easy. You could have just right over and out.
That's right. Yeah, Jack was kind of just like a straight statue. But the captain, he was he had one foot on a barrel.
He was in full mode.
Sword up in the air.
Yes.
Yeah, he's the captain.
I don't know if I can fit anything. I think we're going to have to wrap it up from. Oh, well, I want to tell you my spoons on New Year's Eve story. You got to know. I told you I got bit.
You did.
So we're playing spoons in the living room, and this is probably, I'm going to say about 12 years ago. Maybe 12 years ago, 11 to 12 years ago. So not like when I'm 21 years old, like 12 years ago. So we're playing amongst other other husbands and wives that are around the same age. So it's on the floor in the living room, and the spoons are laid out. And you know, that can be a fun game when you're pounding them because, you know, you got to put your cards down and you got to grab it. So we're playing. And I don't know what the reason was for, and this never happened since in a game of spoons, but I reach over to get what I think was the last spoon, and I get bit in the thigh next to me. Now, it's a woman, thankfully, but it's not like somebody I'm with. And I remember, like, what the hell are you doing? Like, well, you took the last spoon, like, and I had teeth marks in my leg. I mean, she didn't rip my pants like I did in Denver, but it was impressive. So that's one of my classic New Year's Eve, getting bit playing spoons.
That's something.
It's a dangerous game.
That is something. You know, one thing we're going to have to do here pretty soon is we're going to have to, we'll have to tell some more of these stories, and then maybe we'll give out the the drunkest. Right. Which story, who got the drunkest in one of the stories? Oh, yeah. That's good. So you would have won the the night with Dave driving us to the place. Yep. You would have easily, hands down, won it in Denver. That turned into a verb. Denver was the worst. Other than, that was the worst. I don't want to, that'll have to be next week. We got to talk about that because that'll work out if the Broncos are fighting for the playoffs, so we get into that. All right. Well, this was a good one again, I hope. Went a little bit longer, but I think we'll be okay. So people that are watching, let us know what you think. Give us a thumbs up, thumbs down, make a comment. You think it's too long, it could be longer, something you want us to talk about, whatever it is. Our views are getting better, Mike. They're getting better. Word, thankfully, continues to spread. So good. Just anybody that has any suggestions, or let us know what you think, because we could probably do this an easy hour and still have something left over. But let us know if this was too long or too short. And obviously, this has been a great one. So it's good to see you. Happy New Year. And we'll talk next week. Happy New Year to you and everybody out there. All right. Thanks a lot. Thanks for listening and watching. Stay out of the kitchen. And as always, we'll see you next week.